Karen Lin's expression instantly darkened. She felt that after all she'd sacrificed, this man still wanted to negotiate. Tell me, what will it take for you to share the food with me? Come in first, then we can talk. Karen Lin froze upon hearing those words. Aren't you afraid a zombie might suddenly jump out just as the words were spoken? A zombie's roar sounded, and it was very close. Karen Lin's face turned pale instantly, but she had no choice but to brace herself and step inside. Just as I was shutting the door, I happened to lock eyes with David Zhao, who was sitting diagonally across from me. As Karen Lin walked into my room, he quietly pulled his head back. I scoffed and shut the door. What a natural-born coward. Always so quick to retreat, Cynthia immediately became agitated after seeing Karen Lin enter the room. Karen Lin instinctively stepped back in fear, only to bump right into me. Feeling the intense heat behind her, Karen Lin let out a startled cry and hurriedly stepped away. Why did you keep a zombie in the house? Aren't you afraid? I looked calm and collected. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a zombie. Hearing this, he couldn't help but compare me to David Zhao. If her husband had half my courage, they wouldn't have to come over to trade food. Karen Lin sighed and asked, so what do you want me to do for you to be willing to share your food with me? Karen Lin, who was kneeling in front of me just moments ago, ran to the bathroom looking utterly defeated. Soon, the sound of vomiting came from inside. A few minutes later, he returned to the living room and said to me, quite rudely, that he had done all he could. I casually opened the refrigerator door, deliberately letting him see it stuffed full of raw meat. In that moment, Karen Lin suddenly had the idea to knock me out, but rationality prevailed. I had actually been keeping an eye on what was happening behind me. Karen Lin didn't make any moves, which was a bit disappointing. I almost got a freebie. I took out about a pound of pork and tossed it in front of Karen Lin. Karen Lin stared at the pork on the ground with a grim expression. Is this all you're giving me? It's already too much. I originally planned to give you just half a kilo, but she doesn't realize the value of this kilo of meat in the post-apocalyptic world. All I know is that back then, David Zhao gave her family a dowry of 388. You on to marry her, plus his name is also on the house deed. Now, he had exhausted all his efforts, yet all he received was a pitiful pound of meat. He couldn't accept it. Not when even David Zhao hadn't been treated this way. Karen Lin took a deep breath and finally picked up the pork from the floor with a cold expression and walked out. Seeing this, I wasn't angry but rather reflective. The more unpleasant his attitude, the more I felt a delightful sense of revenge. I happily pulled up the system panel, ready to claim the house and fruit and vegetables. Although a 100 square meter house is a bit small, I have a solution. If I can find another woman with a similar status to Karen Lin, I can expand the house from the 100 square meter base. The only issue now is the blueprints for the safe house. Fortunately, there might be survivors from the architecture department at Coastal University. It looks like I'll have to head out. Early the next morning, I began gathering supplies. First, I started with room 504, located right across from my apartment. I quickly took out a piece of wire, inserted it into the lock, and had the door open within seconds. As I stepped into the room, I immediately heard the sound of chewing coming from the bedroom. I quietly pushed open the bedroom door and saw an elderly man with white hair feasting on a corpse lying on the bed. So pitiful, I said, as I swung the kitchen knife and struck the zombie's neck. Content is blocked. But surprisingly, I didn't manage to cut off his neck. Instead, it startled him and he turned around, clawing at me as he lunged forward. I kicked the zombie in the chest and simultaneously pulled out my cleaver, sending it flying away. He immediately rushed forward to deliver a few more strikes until the zombie stopped moving. When I came to my senses, I realized there were 2 chips on the kitchen knife. After all, it's just a kitchen knife. It's okay for chopping meat, but not quite enough for taking down zombies. Looks like I'll need to find a better weapon by late morning. I finally finished clearing the 6 rooms on the 5th floor, taking down a total of 3 zombies. Find the wheat juice, a box of miscellaneous medications, and a tub of protein powder. Although the harvest was bountiful, the sharp kitchen knife ended up ruined. Luckily, she managed to find a baseball bat. She swung it a couple of times, and it felt just right in her hands. On the other side, Karen Lin and her companion also witnessed me slaying zombies through the peephole. My wild demeanor made both of them swallow hard, grateful that they hadn't acted earlier. Otherwise, they might have met their end. Only when they heard the sound of the door closing next door did they finally open their own door and step out. They searched room by room, hoping to find any leftover food. Unfortunately, I had already cleaned everything out thoroughly, leaving them empty-handed. Did that jerk leave anything at all? It's like he's a locust or something, devouring everything in sight. I did find a steak, but it's covered in maggots. David Zhao's eyes darted around. Honey, why don't you go ask him for some more food? Karen Lin reluctantly wanted to refuse, saying, we just ate yesterday, and we're not that hungry right now. Let's not go looking for her just yet. Right now, we might not be hungry, but eventually, we will be. Are you going to wait for her to feed all the food to the zombies before you ask for some? Karen Lin knew it made sense. but the thought of having to go and talk her way through it made her completely unwilling. Seeing this, David Zhao sincerely took Karen Lin's hand and said, "Honey, I want to survive with you. We will definitely hold on until the military arrives to rescue us." Looking at her husband's pleading eyes, Karen Lin gritted her teeth and said, "All right, I'll go." David Zhao watched as Karen Lin entered the room next door. His expression immediately darkened. Pretending to be all reserved, he muttered to himself, "What's the difference after selling out once or twice?" David Zhao doesn't think he has any quirks. He's just rational enough. That's what it means to be able to adapt to circumstances. As soon as Karen Lin walked in, she was greeted by an enticing aroma. At this moment, I walked into the kitchen and soon came out carrying a rice cooker filled to the brim with potatoes. He opened another bottle of wheat juice, sat comfortably on the sofa, and started enjoying it. Karen Lin was so tempted by the aroma that she couldn't help but swallow her saliva. However, seeing that I remained silent, she could only stand there dumbfounded. After taking a couple of bites, I suddenly said, "I almost forgot about you." I said this as I got up to grab a plate and served some meat. Karen Lin thought it was for her, and as she happily prepared to take it, I walked straight past him towards the sofa and took the cloth out of Cynthia's mouth. He immediately buried his head in the plate, devouring the food. On the other side, Karen Lin looked a bit awkward. He cleared his throat and changed the subject. "Did we clean the rooms on the 5th floor today?" "Yes, I'm leaving soon, so I'm gathering some supplies before I go." Karen Lin's eyes widened instantly upon hearing those words. "What? You're leaving? There are zombies everywhere outside. Where are you planning to go?" I chuckled and didn't answer. "What? Will you miss me when I'm gone?" Karen Lin heard those words and looked furious. "Why would I be reluctant to part with you? I can't wait for you to disappear forever." However, despite what he said, there was a hint of worrying in his eyes. If I took all the food with me, wouldn't he and David Zhao be left to starve? "Tell me, what brings you here? I want to trade food with you." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I expected Karen Lin to come back, but I didn't think it would be this soon. But my laughter made Karen Lin feel mocked, and she couldn't help but become angry and embarrassed. "Are you going to change or not? Just give me an answer," she demanded. "I'm full. It's a good time to get some exercise and digest. Just a friendly reminder, once I'm gone, there won't be anywhere to exchange for food. Want to stock up this time?" After speaking, I immediately got up and headed towards the bedroom. Karen Lin straightened up upon hearing this. He understood what I meant, but yesterday's events had already filled him with shame. Yet, once this jerk leaves, where can he possibly find food? Karen Lin gritted her teeth and made a decision. She was doing this so she and her husband could survive together. Even if he found out, he would surely understand her. A few minutes later, Karen Lin walked out of the bedroom, her legs feeling weak. The dry air made her throat feel burning sore, and her whole body seemed to be falling apart. At that moment, footsteps suddenly echoed from behind. Karen Lin instinctively covered her bottom and begged, "Please, I really can't take it anymore."